Hey there, Southern. Welcome to another episode of Film Guy Reviews. I'm your film guy, Matthew Sinclair, and for today's review, I will discuss the latest sci-fi opus that is known as Interstellar. So Interstellar is set in the not-too-distant future where Earth is slowly dying to the point where our crops are slowly dying, and it's up to NASA to send a group of astronauts led by Cooper, played by Matthew McConaughey, into a wormhole in another galaxy, and of course that means Cooper has to abandon his family, and the whole thing just kind of goes from there. And as always, I will undergo the ups, then the downs, then my overall consensus, and thankfully there's not really any downs, but let's get to it. The first up I'll go into is the score by Hans Zimmer, who also did Inception, Man of Steel, and The Dark Knight. But while this score isn't exactly as booming or larger than life as those films, it's a very beautiful score, and there's even a bit of a spacey tone that accompanies the film's story and the scenes in space, and even the scene before Cooper goes into space and says goodbye to his kids. And I thought it was very harmonious, and even while I was writing my review for this film on my blog, I even played the score, and yeah, that was very well done. And next I'll get into the film's thematic material. What surprised me about the film was how it touches on themes of love and the things we do for the people we love. Like, for example, Cooper is mainly going on this mission for his kids, and one of the astronauts named Brand, played by Anne Hathaway, part of the reason she's going on this expedition is to be with a former astronaut who explored the wormhole they're going into. And it was kind of a bit of a relief that the film shows just how powerful love is without going into the whole love conquers all BS that some Hollywood films try to force feed us. And I thought it was surprising for such a grand sci-fi film. And next I'll get into the direction by Mr. Christopher Nolan. Now, those of us that are fans of his work know that he's one of the best modern directors working today, and this film is certainly no different. And what was so special about this film was how it, even though it's a large-scale film, it feels like it's done on a smaller scale. Like, some of the space scenes are even shot on actual locations like Iceland. And like his other blockbusters, he lends some artistic credibility to his smaller films that he started out in, like Memento. And I also thought the cinematography was beautifully shot. And it was done by the same cinematographer who did films like Her, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and Let the Right One In. His name is Hoyt van Hoytema. Now, he's an absolute genius. I'm a huge fan of his work, and I also thought the visuals were spectacular. They certainly weren't the things that made the film, but they certainly added to it, and it's kind of interesting. The visuals add to a sci-fi film. Usually it's the visuals that make the film, but because it's a very story-based a sci-fi film, that's probably why the visuals help accompany the film. And next I'll get into the performances, and Matthew McConaughey, he once again delivers career best work as Cooper, the leader of his crew that commands with a rather commanding cool. Yet in his more quiet moments, where we see how much he misses his family, we see him at his most emotionally vulnerable. But I do have to say, though, with the recent career best work that he and Ben Affleck have churned out the past few years, those two are officially on parole from movie prison. And the film also has quite an ensemble of actors, like not just Anne Hathaway, but Jessica Chastain, Casey Affleck, Michael Caine, Topher Grace, Ellen Burstyn, and a surprise cameo. But a few standouts I would love to acknowledge are Mackenzie Foy, who plays the youngest version of Cooper's daughter, Murph, And for such a young child actress, she gives a very mature and grounded performance, and I thought some of the scenes between her and McConaughey were the highlights of the film. And another standout, I would say, is John Lithgow, who plays Cooper's father-in-law, who takes care of his kids while he is away. And I thought, even though he had a short amount of screen time, he stole every scene he was in and brought some nice comedic relief. And the last up I'll go into is the screenplay. Now, this is the thing that a lot of people had problems with aside from its length. But I personally thought the screenplay was a beautifully flowing ocean, and I'll admit there were a few points in the film where I was like, huh? But it eventually came back to me, and even though it's one of Nolan's best, it may not be perfect, but this is my personal mindset, but I believe not every film is perfect, because even The Dark Knight has its own fair share of missteps. But all in all, I thought it was a beautifully crafted film, and like I said, there's not really any downs, and because like I said, I did have a few problems with the story, but it all came back to me. And overall, I thought Interstellar was a poetic visual saga about the themes of love and humanity, and the acting was brilliant, the direction was masterful, and the score was harmonious. And if you guys are a fan of Nolan's work, or if you guys aren't on campus, I would highly recommend you guys check it out. And I give it a final grade of an A-. So that was my review of Interstellar. If you want to check out my full review alongside anything else related to film, be sure to check out my website, www.filmguyreviews.blogspot.com. And this is Matt Sinclair of Film Guy Reviews, signing off. Stay classy.